Hello, everyone. This is a SIG-Network Ingress NGINX subproject meeting. Today is the 25th of May, 2021. This is a Kubernetes community meeting, and we ask you to comply with the code of conduct, which is basically be excellent with each other. If there's any violations, please report those to the SIG chair or the person running this meeting, aka me, or Ricardo if you have an issue with me. Anyway, with that, we've got a couple of big things that we need to talk about, but let's go ahead and welcome some of our newer members. So anyone who is on the call that would like to introduce themselves and talk about their experience and what they're looking to help with, go ahead and go on unmute, and we'll start there.
Alvin is new in this meeting.
Yeah. He is new in this meeting.
Sure. Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Alvin. I'm new in this meeting, but I've been with Ingress NGINX project for a while. I forgot the number of years. I've been actively contributing, especially to the Lua side and all the endpoint syncing without reload and the certificate syncing without reload and all those things. But in past 6 months, I've been a bit inactive. But I'm around, and I'll try to be more active on the reviews at least. But in the meantime, you can always ping me if you have any question about the implementations on anything Lua and also Go side as well of the controller.
Awesome. Thanks for all your contributions, and glad to have you back.
Yeah.
My name is Cindy, and oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Alvin. Okay, I'll just continue.
I'm done, Cindy. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I know a teeny bit of Go, and I'm very new to Kubernetes and the cloud in general. But I'm big into automated testing, and I can help out with documentation if you need help there.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Documentation is always important from that perspective. And like I was talking about before we started recording, there are lots of open issues, and that's part of what we need to discuss. So we'll try to get you helping as soon as possible. Anybody else?
Yeah. Hi, I am Kundan, and I am basically contributing in SIG-Networks part, especially on Ingress NGINX since more than 1 year, around 1.5 year. So in my current role in my organization, I am basically responsible for contribution on behalf of NEC Corporation, especially in SIG-Networks. So since last 1.5 year, I mostly contributed in Ingress NGINX, either it's doc PR or small bug fixes and analyzes issues and all. And I am also I started working in kubeproxy also. So there also I am contributing, and my main motive is to contribute as much as possible. Means even I tried in last release also to contribute few features in Ingress NGINX, but unfortunately after doing some work and after discussion it was not materialized, so it haven't got submitted. Yeah, but my motive will be some quality fixes, quality features to contribute in Ingress NGINX in this release also.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate your help from that perspective. So hopefully we can get some of those features pushed through after we've talked through some of the other issues that I know that are facing us right now. So what about time from that perspective? Ricardo, do you want to, should we go ahead and skip issue triage and really go into the big concern that we have right now from that perspective?
Yeah, I would like to make some usage of that time that Alvin is also with us, because he has been in the project a long time as me, so we may probably need some other perspectives from that. So yeah, so I don't know if everybody knows, but the Ingress object was created as an extension into the API group extensions, and that then later it was migrated to a specific API group inside Kubernetes, which is networking Kubernetes IO /v1 beta 1. And most recently, I think was on 120 or 119, it was graduated to GA, so it's on V1. But during this migration, some fields from the stacks they have changed, and also some behavior have changed. So we got the Ingress class, we've got the path type, and also the service field, which is not anymore service name and service port, but now it's a service field where you put the name and the port or the port name. And those are breaking changes. And those are breaking changes from the key behavior, or they are like pretty hard to maintain two code bases inside Ingress controller, or even having like a converter for that. Recently, Antonio, which works at Red Hat and which is like a member of SIG-Network as well, reached us into our repo, because some tests were flaking or were failing. Actually, they were failing in the main repo. And he asked me, but he asked other folks about if we are not going to move the support from Ingress NGINX from V1 Beta 1 to V1. Because on the next release of Kubernetes, which is V1 22, V1 Beta 1 is going to be deprecated and the API is not going to serve it anymore. So the only API that's going to be served about the Ingress object is going to be the V1, which has these changes. Okay, so I brought this here because I wanted to discuss with you. I think we have some issues and some PRs to deal with, but on the same time, yeah, this is the issue. And on the same time, I guess it's required that we start supporting the V1 API. Otherwise, we are going to be the official project and probably the only one from the Ingress controllers that does not support the V1 API. Right, but to do that, we will need to deprecate the support for Kubernetes versions which are less than 1.19. And we have to make some deprecation plan and some communication plan and probably other things that I forgot to say. So I have opened a PR to migrate from V1 Beta 1 to V1, which is not finished yet. I still have to change the main part of the controller and the E2E tests. It's on the pull requests. It's a huge one. I've spent my weekend doing that. And yeah, this one. So this is going to be fun to review. Who wants to review this one? It's going to be pretty fun. But yeah, so mostly I wanted to bring this discussion to you folks to see what is our timeline about this. We need to be sure that we are going to communicate folks about this, because it's going to bring some impact for folks using Kubernetes in an older version, even if Kubernetes is not supported from pre-release to now. So we have inside the support of Kubernetes 119, 120, and 121, but we still need to communicate that. And I wanted to bring this discussion to you because some users, they asked it to us like, hey, at least put a release before doing this. So we might have like a up-to-date release that we can keep instead of updating our whole Kubernetes clusters, right? Any bug that happens before we cut this release, probably we are going to have to cherry pick into that. So maybe Carlos is not here, but maybe I was wondering if a good strategy would be that we have like version 0 dot something, which uses V1 Beta 1, and version 1 dot something, which uses the API version 1, and bugs and CVEs and other things we cherry pick to older versions. Otherwise, you're going to follow this new version. And yeah, there is a lot of things to discuss. So I want to hear you folks as well. What do you think about that? How can we move forward with this?
This has been one of the things since I think the past month, since I've been trying to help get an understanding of where we're at. But there are lots of older issues from that perspective, and there's lots of older versions of Kubernetes that they're using. So this will help from that perspective, pushing that forward. We do need a deprecation plan, so I completely agree with you from that perspective. And this really, we don't have an option otherwise, being able moving forward with 122. So this has to be done. We just need to be able to put together a good communication strategy.
Yeah, I guess we'll also have to think about the extra overhead. What Ricardo was suggesting, my understanding is that we'll now support 2 branches, and while we'll have active development for the newer one, the other one will still do bug fixes. Is that what you're suggesting, Ricardo?
Yeah, mostly critical bugs. And I guess we could establish also a window for that. Like, we are going to support this for the next 6 months. So please migrate folks to newer cluster versions. Yeah. Just because if we find some security issue or something else, we can port these to previous versions instead of saying to people, hey, migrate your Kubernetes cluster in, otherwise they're going to be vulnerable.
Yeah, makes sense. Do we have like the Kubernetes CI infrastructure? Is there already tooling for that to implement it straightforwardly, like 2 CI pipeline and CD pipeline from different branches?
Yeah. I need, so the person that knows a lot of this is Carlos, which skipped today, but we can query him in Slack. He's the Kubernetes branch manager, so he knows all of these toolings, all of those things. Also, the automated cherry pick tool that Kubernetes have. So probably it's gonna be it's not gonna be easy to use it, but it's gonna be the same process that we already have in Kubernetes main repo, which is like someone makes a path and points to a specific branch, and we say, okay, this branch is gonna now have this path, so you can put a release into both of those paths, both of those branches. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So probably this is an action item that we need to have is query Carlos, how can we make like 2 branches, a branch with only the V1 beta 1 before my PR ships, and this is going to be like the old branch that we are going to maintain for a specific timeline, only for like to CVEs and bug fixes and critical bug fixes, and the other one which is going to be the new repo. The new Ingress, actually. Cool. Yeah. So, and with this, with this came the other item that I've added, which is we are getting a lot of feature requests, and some of them are adding bugs. The last one was one that I approved, which was the course multi-path or something like that. I've asked Wayne to take a look into that, but probably this is going to be reversed. So I was wondering if we, at this moment, if we want to keep accepting feature requests right now, or if we should focus on squashing the bugs and saying, hey, okay, we have a stable version, so we can cut the release and say this is the how can I say, this is the default version for V1 beta 1, and any new features is going to ship into the V1 after we merge everything, we merge the word. I don't know, because I keep seeing more PRs about features.
I think that goes in,
yeah.
I mean, I think that goes in line with our previous comments around just having if we're doing a separate branch and we're only doing bug fixes, we shouldn't be implementing new features into an older version. So I agree that we shouldn't be putting new features into I think we're on V46 right now. I think that if we keep the same line of thinking from that perspective, so feature freeze on anything that's in V-Beta 1, and wait until we get the new V1 fixes in. Any other comments or questions?
Hi. Sorry, I'm a DevOps engineer. I'm not a developer. But I spend time listening and seeing the issues being reported. And I just wanted to chip in on that thought process that yes, we should not do any more features, because I think one additional thing that is happening is some people are asking for support on really old versions, and any PRs will impact this entire cycle that we are thinking. And as it is, I've heard that there are not enough resources, and sometimes I think it's taking too much bandwidth, because ultimately it's turning out to be a user issue, configuration issue, and then locking down to they want support only on a very old version. I just wanted to comment on that. Nothing big. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the older ones have been, I think, in like V30 versions and misconfigurations from that perspective. Even from the last meeting that we had, there was a lot from that perspective. So we still got a lot of follow up on. I think we covered maybe 10 or 12 of the older ones, and I say old, we're talking a year plus. So I think if we go into that communication plan and talking about deprecations of just being able to only support 119 and following other projects, I understand that that's going to be an issue for folks using older versions and can't upgrade their clusters, but from the scale that we have and the folks that we have helping, we can't continue to support older versions from that perspective.
Yeah, regarding to the new features, what do you think of imposing a bit more friction? Like we can, for example, require KEP for every new feature.
The thing is that some features they are simple, and the other one they are more critical. I'm just afraid because the CAP process it's a pretty hard and slow, at least in Kubernetes, which is much bigger than Ingress. But I think it's something that we should probably think about, like having a document explaining what's that feature and why we should accept or deny it.
So I think it's fine for the group to basically say, hey, there's going to be a stabilization release. There probably hasn't been one in the life of this project. And the other one is that I'm big fan of this idea, like if you want to put something in, you have to take something out. So like if you can fix a bug before you put a new feature in, kind of making that at least for the current like one cycle, so that it's just not people landing features and then kind of leaving. And then the surface area just keeps increasing and increasing, and you can't catch up.
Yeah, I like that idea. Like if you want to add a new feature, resolve at least one bug.
Cool.
So that brings up another action item then about putting together a I don't want to say a KEP light, that doesn't sound right, but some kind of direction and plan for adding new features. That doesn't really help us with are we only going to support new features in anything after the stabilization? Is that what we're talking about from that when you say stabilization release, Bowie?
Yeah, I think like just given where the project is, it is worth saying like, hey, we are at a point where we would like to just stabilize the existing stuff to get rid of the queue and then take new features. And if you are really interested in adding a new feature, like, you know, this is the opportunity to sign up for taking care of some of the existing bugs. That way it gives an incentive, because otherwise the incentive is very high to add new features, and fixing bugs is like only if you are encountering that bug.
Yeah, again, just my 2 cents. People argue a lot and talk and describe a lot of stuff for why they require things. So I think if we are very explicit in saying here's a hard dependency that if we start the things that are absolute priority right now will impact any pre 1.19 users. So that's the reason we are taking this approach, because that's helpful. And if somebody, and then we can also be very explicitly saying it on either documentation page or somewhere, saying this is the reason we're taking this approach. And if you have a better suggestion, please come to the meeting, or please describe it that so it works for everybody. I'm just saying,
Something along that line. Just making sure that we're explicit in the process on how to move forward for users using versions older than 1.19.
Yeah. So some kind of communication, because what Ricardo said really made a very, very big difference now. Because earlier people were talking about backporting fixes and all that, but now that we have to go into this message where pre 1.19 is going to be a problem. Either that is our current thought, that is our current solution, that's our current known best approach. If somebody else can come up with a better approach, we should say that please present your thoughts and ideas. Otherwise, stick to this.
Did we want to have a user survey to understand the user base? Because I don't know how well we know, like, are people stuck on 1.17 versus like what the population of users is?
Yeah, I think that will be a good idea, but my thoughts basically is coming from watching the issues being submitted and the conversations on the Slack channel. There seems to be a small section that say they are stuck on a certain version of Kubernetes because of the provider, and then they are stuck on a certain version of the controller itself, and they don't want to upgrade, and yet they want a feature or a bug fix. So I think for that community, explicit communication, I just thought it would be nice. But yeah, survey would be good.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to do the survey if we can get that data from stuff that already exists. One thing that's not clear, or maybe if you have looked at it, is like how many versions back is this actually?
Yeah.
Like what is the span that we're looking at if we put old versions, like if we are supporting old versions, like how old are we talking about? Because I've heard pretty old, but it's not clear.
Yes, sorry, Bobby. So this was something that we were discussing, if it's worth to put this into a different branch and say, hey, we are going to support this for more 6 months, but only for bug fixes, security bug fixes. So you have 6 months to migrate from your old cluster to new one, right? Because Kubernetes supports only 3 releases behind, but we know that cloud providers, they support a bit more. So I know that I think Google is on 1.17 or 1.18. Amazon also have some older versions. So I am pretty sure that probably there are some folks using Ingress NGINX inside those managed Kubernetes instead of using the Ingress from the cloud provider. And for those users, this might be a problem, right? So I was wondering if maybe we should do the same thing that's done in Kubernetes and saying, hey, okay, we are gonna keep this for the next 6 months, but only for like CVEs or bug fixes.
Great idea.
No, I think that makes sense, because from a project perspective, you can't, like, Kubernetes is moving forward even though it's very slow, like we can't just have maintenance just be an infinite list out the back. But the issue right now is, like, how far back do we care? That's not clear.
I can probably search and come up with some issue URLs to issues numbers. Somebody I think is right now with an open issue on 33, somebody else on 35. But I think the objective of this conversation, I think we're saying is, at least the way I'm seeing it, is that there is no place on the documentation or anywhere else where we are explicit about this. And now, because of this this requirement that we need to start working with V1 by time 122 is out, we need to get explicit and then deal with whatever circumstances come up. So I think
okay, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I think then this is just someone should own creating a PR that defines an explicit policy, which I think we discuss here.
Right.
And then further comments and from the general group can be on that comment. And then basically we can, once that gets committed, we can kind of broadcast that.
Right. And on a side note, that will also be useful that we are all aware, we all just become aware of it, like consciously aware of it. And when somebody's submitting issues that comes under that scope, that either the controller version is old or the feature they're requesting or the PR they're submitting is hitting this kind of scope, then we just point them to that explicit communication on documentation or wherever. We tell them we have to be very clear about it. And it's not, right now it's not clear. It's not explicit. So we just as a group, people in this meeting, I'm a big fan of all you guys. So, but we are not, I mean, I'm seeing Jintao and everybody addresses issues. So I think we should just be conscious and communicate that to people who create issues.
Ricardo, do you have the proposal written up? I'm looking at the doc, trying to see.
No.
Of a proposed policy?
No, because actually I've added this to the agenda today, so we could discuss before I start proposing something, but okay. I can work with James into that during this week.
Yeah, probably the fastest way is to just create a shared document that can be added, and then probably someone will take it up to just put as a PR, and then we get more comments after it's kind of like finalized on the document side, and then we can commit it.
Cool.
I think a brief snippet of that should go right on the homepage of the documentation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone wants to do that? Or at least keep
or we could just use this doc. There's no need to create a new one.
Okay.
But we should finalize, I guess, like what we feel like is an appropriate wording.
Okay, the silence says to me that or everybody's thinking or no one okay wants to jump in. Yeah, so
I'm willing to do whatever possible. Like, but I said I'm not a developer, so I think somebody kicks off a PR, which is modification of the homepage of the documentation, and I think over the course, the whole PR process itself should keep getting refined, and I think the words will come up from there.
Cool.
Yeah, we can do it in the PR, or we can do it just here right now, like just like the blurb that we want. For example, we
Sure,
say, just because it's easy to edit, and then right, like if you want to create a PR from that, then that's easy, and it's like less, less
Awesome.
iterations.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So
So let's start.
I'm going to say, since I'm typing, let me make sure I understand. So our direction that we want to go forward with is that we will continue to support N-3 like the Kubernetes project, new features into N-3 versions for Ingress. And anything older than that only gets bug fixes for 6 months. So if issues get open for new features on older versions.
Just a moment.
Okay.
There is something, Ricardo, actually the essence of that communication, I think I really liked from what Ricardo put out both in the PR and in the messages in Slack. So just the wording about bug fixes, and today Ricardo said one more thing very clearly, CVE. So let's not say bug fixes, let's just say CVE. So only CVEs will come in, but nothing else. So I think just let's get explicit on that CVE only.
Okay.
Or CVEs or something really critical, like, my controller is crashing because of a panic or something undesired.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just limit it to that. That's all.
Long, did you have anything in mind in terms of like what the term CVE would exclude compared to just using the phrase bug fixes?
I'll have to see. I'm very new to this, so I'm very sorry if I can't be too efficient at this. But the thought is coming from at least one or two issues that are open right now, and the root cause of the issue is that they have really huge implementation. Like they have over 1,000 Ingress objects, and they're talking about thousands of hosts and so on. Just there's a size of the config, Nginx con reloading taking minutes and all that. So they're talking about that. So with the conversation we are having today, I'm not particularly clear on how we'll respond to those issues. And basically the reason is that all those people who talking about this very large implementation, they are all on old. At least one or two people are saying they are on a very old version, like 35 or something, and they don't want to upgrade, or they cannot upgrade, either their own limitation or some other limitation. So I think their expectation is right, that they should get a feedback from us or from the team. So for that, if we address that we are giving them feedback, that's one thing. And as for the specific question about saying, question you asked about CVs and saying if there is vulnerabilities and CVs published, that is fine. Or like Ricardo said just now, that's something critical that we can or we have to put in an effort to put in a fix, which is basically breaking stability or on the current releases. Those are the only two use cases or the only two circumstances where we should try to work on an older version, at least say in the communication. That is what I was hinting at. I'm sorry, my thoughts are not very clear, but the worry is just that part I said, old version, complicated, and only one user or maximum 2 users, 3 users, and for that the effort is not going to be worth it.
Thank you for explaining. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted to find out more about your thinking. That was good. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, at least the definition of CVE is fairly precise in that it goes into the CVE database. So that one is, I think, well known. I mean, in the end, it's like a human triage process, but we should definitely say that CVEs probably for sure, unless it's extremely old. And then we will bias towards not just taking all the bug fixes and backporting it. Just that's not realistic for a project.
Right.
So I've added some suggestion that James is reproducing that might be with those two development branches, the view and beta one, we said, hey, okay, we are gonna keep this one only for, I don't know the right wording right now, but the CVEs and critical bug fixes with the human triaging. And the current branch that we use for V1, we can say, hey, we only answer for issues with versions less than 2 or 3 releases. So if we are on 1.5 and someone opens an issue with 1.1, we can say, hey, please update to at least 1.5, and then we can help you. This is what
Right.
Long is actually saying.
Right. And this is consistent with what Alejandro has been telling many people, but
Yeah,
they keep commenting, keep asking, keep messaging. And
the only thing that we need to be careful about this approach is about the how many releases we make during a month or a year, right? How many major releases we make, because Kubernetes have a specific time releasing timing. Like we are always going to make 3 major releases per year in Kubernetes, right? But if we decide like to keep cutting release before release after release, and then saying, hey, we only support three releases back from this one, we can deprecate something like in 2 months if we start releasing a lot of things in a row. So we should probably, and I think this was a concern that Bowie brought on the first meeting, that we need to define a release process and a release window. Like, when are we going to make a release?
So going from history, do we know like what the previous cadence was?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No, so from my little awareness, I think it's come down to a very unique cadence with the Ingress controller that
Whenever a new feature, it's like
new feature, breaking feature, or something that a user brought up, and Alejandro found that it's not supported in NGINX, or NGINX is started, or these changes in NGINX upstream, things like that. That's been the general cadence, I think, at least for the last 2 years.
Yeah, my feeling is like we should just not be very aggressive for now,
Right.
in terms of getting the project settled, because you can only have a really aggressive one if there's a lot of active development and the release process is very smooth and well known, and the whole community is kind of locked in.
Right.
That would be my suggestion. But we do need to give probably a more stable kind of interval. For example, we could, just because there's no other precedent, like we could say, hey, we're going to align with the Kubernetes, like 3 a year, or at least for the next 1 or 2 releases, just to see how it feels, and then it can be iterated.
Right.
Because that also just gives the group breathing time. Like, if we do a lot of releases now, people aren't going to be able to get to things anyway, so the releases might just be empty.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be solving that problem in a very short period of time, for sure, because of the nature of the project and how it fits into the ecosystem. But yeah, we should do the necessary work, not aim for perfection in short period.
So that brings up another question, which is, I think we talked about here, it says minor, but this is minor for this project, not Kubernetes minor. Like, that's one thing is like, what does that mapping look like?
That's a good question for a clarification, because I thought it was Kubernetes minor versions. Ricardo, were you thinking the same thing, or are you thinking project minor versions?
Yeah, for the bug fixes, yes.
So Kubernetes versions -3.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we are gonna put some breaks into feature release, but at least we are going to have more time to work on bug fixes, and we can revisit that later, like say, hey, yeah, we are now having like a good time, nothing new happened, so we can probably accelerate the release again.
Right.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile. Let's just say we put a matrix, and then probably at the bottom there will be like 2 future like proposed, to just stare at that and give people some idea of like, does that work, or do we need to kind of rejigger it?
Okay. We're at about 12:44, so I just want to make sure that we've got a broad understanding of what we were trying to accomplish and get through. So the 4 or 5 action items are working with Carlos to understand how we're going to maintain the 2 separate branches. I think that, Ricardo, since you're working on the new one, is that reasonable for you to take that on as well, or no? Since I know you're fixing the V1, you're doing the V1 fix. Or should I just talk with him about it from that perspective?
Yeah, I don't know what the question means actually.
So that's the CI for maintaining 2 separate branches.
Okay, cool, yeah. So I think we should probably ask for Carlos about that, but in Slack in the public channel, so we can discuss about that.
Okay.
And
I think
how
this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna move on to the next one. This one is answered by all of this. So putting together a PR that basically states all of this, and then probably put it out to the SIG mailing list to start getting comments on it. I can go ahead and get started on this one.
Cool.
Yeah, I think like if we put that table out of like, here's the proposed version mapping, that will, like, people will definitely be able to understand very clearly what's going on. Because they'll be like, oh, in 6 months it's going to be like this. I'm on this version. What impact that will have?
Okay. Do we still want to put out I think since we've decided as a group in this meeting, do we still want to put out the user base survey to understand a little bit more, better than our guesses?
That's high priority. So if we don't get to it now, it feels okay, because we're going to get lots of users commenting anyways.
Okay.
We can at least into the policy PR, we can get some feedback, like make the same thing as Tim is doing with the all port caps, and ask for SIG contributor experience and the CMCF ambassadors to say, hey, we're gonna change the policy release for Ingress NGINX. Please be aware and comment into this PR.
Okay. And then, yeah, the release cycle, I like the idea of just after we get through the stabilization period, just working through and getting on the same release cycle as the Kubernetes project, just to make it easier on us from that perspective. And if we don't have anything new to release, then we don't need to do a release. But that's my opinion, and we can work through that probably the later half of the year once we get through this. Okay, so Carlos, you're going to keep working on 122, the V1 fix. I'll follow up with Carlos on Slack, and we'll have that conversation in the dev channel so that everyone can see it. And I'll put out a PR this week that puts the phrasing in there for the stabilization release, and we'll just cycle through that. And I'll follow up with who did you say I should follow up with? It wasn't SIG contribute. It was it SIG documentation or?
Yes, SIG docs is for the blog post, and SIG contributor experience is for like posting in Twitter and other places. But yeah, we can talk with them as soon as we have everything assembled. We can talk with them.
Yeah, once we got the first crack at the PR and the phrasings right, we'll have them put the word out so we can get that net out there wider from that perspective. Okay, we've got 12 minutes. I know we've talked about a lot, and we've got a lot of work to do for this release. Is there anything else we should move on from this conversation, or we should just break for this one?
I would like to have 10 minutes earlier in my time to. Actually, I did have my lunch. I need to finish my things for my daily job before joining another meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we covered a lot of ground in this one, I think. So, all right. Well, we'll take this to the Slack channel and the mailing list. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See ya. Have a nice weekend. Nice week.
Oh, I wish.
A little early.
It's still Thursday. See you, folks.
All right. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.